Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. My name is Will Brooks. I'm the host of the Partnership for Profit podcast. And today we have a really cool guest with us. Today we have Steve Fretzin, who is a four-time author, host of the Be That Lawyer podcast, and one of the nation's leading business development coaches for attorneys, which is a big part of our audience. So I'm super glad to have Steve on the podcast today. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, all good, Will. I've already done my Pilates class with me and 11 other women, and spent an hour playing with a ribbon with my kitten. So fully.
So you're loosened up.
Morning already.
You're ready to go. I love it, man. Yeah. That's great. That's a good way to start your week off. Pilates with you said 11 other women?
Yeah. So there's 12 tables in the room, and I got one, and it's always me and 11 women. And so I'm the one man standout, and
hey, those are good odds.
Yeah. Never thought of it from that perspective, neither as my wife, but okay.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, my wife she wouldn't want me to think about them from those odds either. So Steve, tell me a little bit about what you have going on, what you're doing to help out attorneys.
I appreciate that, Will. So I never, as a non-lawyer, I never sought attorneys out. I had a lawyer father who grilled me on a regular basis as a teenager, and I never really felt an affinity for the law. And I essentially got into teaching what's called sales-free selling to entrepreneurs. Most people hate being sold. They don't like selling. They feel it's icky, dirty, ugly. They wanted to have a better method or methodology to follow. I created one called Sales-Free Selling, wrote a book, all of that. And then in 2008, when the recession hit, bang, I started getting all these attorneys coming out of the woodwork to seeking me out to work with them because their hours had been slashed. The jobs had been cut, whatever, their in-house role, dismissed. And so I started working with attorneys, and I never put two and two together that they hate sales too, and they don't learn a damn thing about it in law school or at the law firm level. And it took me about 16 months and pushed all my chips into legal. And it's been that way for over 17 years. And I would never trade it for the world. I feel like I work with the smartest, nicest, most brilliant people in the world that appreciate what they're learning from me. So that's how it happened. And, no looking back at this point.
I love that you said that about attorneys. I feel the same way. We work with primarily law firm owners and attorneys. And I feel the same way. I've said this in the pod before when people ask me about what I do and who we work with. And I tell them that I work with lawyers. A lot of times the people kind of go, "Oh, you work with lawyers?"
Yeah.
I always tell them, like, you don't understand. Lawyers are A, they're super smart, and B, they are willing to admit what they don't know and are excited to learn new ways of doing things, especially when it comes to their business. Maybe we're not telling them how to litigate or how to try a case. We're talking to them about how to run how to help their business grow. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the same things. So I'm on the same page with you, man. I think attorneys are great to work with, and they listen. They really listen. Most of them listen to what you bring to the table and put it into play. So I love that about that particular niche. It's a great niche to be in. What types of attorneys do you work with primarily?
That's the most interesting thing, maybe, is that I'm working with the 65-year-old who wants to practice for another 15, 20 years. I'm working with an up and coming solo who's just starting from nothing. Every practice area, it all comes down to one thing: is someone ambitious to grow and wants to cut through the BS of figuring it out themselves. If they want to plan and process and systems and everything that they would need, just like going to law school. I don't practice the law. I don't walk into a courtroom and start telling a jury what to do,
right,
or what to think or whatever. Business development's the same way. So if they want to cut through all that clutter and just get down to what do I need to plan and execute on every day to be successful and grow my own client base and live a great lawyer life, then they work with me. Otherwise, they figure it out themselves, or they just, read stuff or watch stuff like this and, kind of figure it out, ad hoc, which is, again, I'm open to that too.
Is it like personal injury lawyer? Is that the style type, or is it just all types of specialties?
Every practice area, I think, other than maybe I've never worked with a personal bankruptcy attorney, but other than that, immigration, IP, PI, you just across the board, big firm, big law lawyers, mean, Wednesday, I'm heading down to Florida. I'm doing a 300 equity partner retreat for Jackson Lewis,
Oh,
big
wow.
employment firm,
Yeah.
keynoting for them, and I spend the entire day there doing coaching sessions for their best and brightest and equity partners. So I mean, it really does come, that's kind of what. And by the way, I'm also international. I've got clients in Israel and Saudi Arabia and Brazil and all over the place. So it's really, really interesting because I'm not siloed into one type of law or one type of individual. It really, ranges around the entire globe in every size, shape, and scope.
Awesome. That's great, man. Congratulations on that. That you're kind of all over the globe. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thanks.
Let me ask you a question. I want to know what's the biggest mistake that most attorneys make when they're trying to grow their book of business, and what's something they can do to fix that mistake?
Well, this can go back to the folks listening that remember in law school that they didn't learn anything about business development, not even the idea that the person that's sitting to your left or to your right, if they're really smart, are going to be the general counsels, and they're going to be folks that could be referral partners in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so even at the very beginning of just in undergrad, in law school, that you need to start developing a network and developing relationships, because those are the things that are going to help you get the jobs, that are going to help you get business and be successful outside of just learning the law and practicing the law. So that's, starting sooner rather than later. And that I mentioned, like, 60-year-olds are coming to me and they're saying, hey, I want to get started on this because my hours are down and I don't have any business right now. They all say the same thing to me. I wish I'd started this at 35. I wish I'd
Right.
started sooner. Across the board, they always say it. They always have regrets for not thinking about business development and personal branding earlier. A way to change that for people is to start becoming a student of the game, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos like this, whatever it might be, where you can start picking up ideas and start formulating plans and formulating ways of doing things so that you're going to get better results than just sort of figuring it out on your own as you go, or just hiding under your desk because it's scary and I don't like going to networking events or attending a conference because I have to deal with people, right? It's just easier to just do the work, right?
Right.
And that type of mentality is what keeps people in that service partner role. And it also is what keeps them from independence, control, and freedom in their career. They just don't realize it until, in some cases, it's too late.
Got it. Got it. I wanna ask you a little bit about the sale-free selling technique you're talking about.
Sure.
You say authenticity is a secret weapon in business development.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice for you as far as the sales-free selling? Because that's a big
Yeah.
part of, I think that's a big part of our philosophy as well, as far as how we work with people and try not to, we don't want to do a hard sell on people. That's it, just
Yeah.
people see right through it.
Will, this is the most backwards thing we're gonna talk about today. All right. It's the idea that lawyers call going to sell somebody a service a pitch meeting. That's right there in the name of what they say to their partner when they're going to take someone to go to pitch their work, to pitch their firm, to pitch themselves. It's selling, and selling in 2025, 2026 is not authentic. What it is me trying to stuff you into, a square peg in a round hole. What makes things authentic is when a lawyer can follow a system like sales free selling, where they walk into a meeting, any meeting, networking, business, like an actual sales opportunity or business development opportunity, whatever we want to call it. For the butterflies out there and the dandelions that can't handle the word sales. Okay. And it's how do we develop a deeper relationship? How do we take control of the meeting? How do we establish that we want this to be a win-win outcome for both parties? How do we ask questions to develop to have them believe in us and feel that we're experts, not because we're pitching ourselves, but because of the quality of the questions and the way that we're maintaining, control of the meeting in a way that allows us to understand the potential client at the next level, qualify them through so that we actually know what to present, and then present them exactly what they need to see, hear, experience to believe and agree that it's a good fit and move this forward. So at the end of the meeting, when a potential client says, this is great, how do we get started? Or send me an engagement letter. Let's move this forward. And you've said nothing about your firm, and you've said nothing about how you're going to solve the problems. None of it came up because they just buy into you in the way that you've managed this meeting. That's sales free selling in a nutshell. And that no one is going to feel more authentic than when they're making the entire engagement about the other person, not about themselves and how great they are, which, by the way, most lawyers hate, sort of touting their expertise and
Right.
talking about themselves. So why not follow a platform that's going to make you feel good about it? And also, by the way, understand if there are lies being told, if there's things that are being hidden, that by asking questions and not talking, you learn so much more of what might be an issue or might be an impediment to moving forward. Whereas opposed when you're talking, you learn nothing, you know nothing. Right. So it's really interesting how this can work when a lawyer can learn it and buy into it.
I agree. I mean, I think that doesn't just apply to lawyers. I think this applies
Oh
to
no.
all business. Building a relationship is for me is that's the key, and making it about them. Finding out what issues they're having in their business, what they need help with. The way we approach it is, we have our podcast here that you're on. That's a big part of our business development and brand building for us, and is to kind of inquire about what people have going on and what they might be struggling with. And then, what I always tell people is, and I think this kind of helps to kind of alleviate the idea of it being any kind of sales push, is, when I find out what they have a problem with, if it's not something that I can help them with, I know someone who can, and being
Yeah.
willing to pass them along to someone who can solve that problem for them, and being honest about, yeah, well, that's not really, you have SEO issues. We don't really do SEO in our business, but I know I have a great guy that I want to connect you with who I know can help you in that aspect.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate that big time. So,
Yeah. I mean, I
I
just
don't,
got back from PimCon a few weeks ago with
Mhm.
Chris Dreyer's big deal,
Yep.
Rankings.io. They're a sponsor of my podcast,
Yeah,
and I went on stage.
I've had a couple of the guys from Rankings on the podcast before.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing. It's an incredible operation over there, and to get on stage in front of all those lawyers and talk about podcasting and the value of it, and you know, so business development and marketing, they go hand in hand, and I think most lawyers, call business development marketing and marketing business development, and again, it's something that, like, going back to school and understanding, like, hey, these are all learned skills. Sales free selling is a learned skill. I'm teaching it every week to a group of 13 to 15 lawyers that meet with me for 90 minutes a week to learn this stuff,
Right.
so that they own it and internalize it and can use it, for the rest of their careers. And I think that lawyers that aren't seeing business development as a learned skill, they see it as, oh, that's a natural rainmaker. That's someone that has the personality or the gift of gab. 50% of my clients are highly introverted people, right? They do not want to go to conferences. They do not want to go to networking events. And
Right.
we work through it and into it to work out how they can do it, and make the engagement about other people, which then allows an introvert to sit back and listen, which is what they want to do anyway. They don't want to really be the lampshade on the head at the party or the talker. They'd rather sit back and take it all in.
Yeah. I think that's it's funny you talk about listening, and I've said this on the podcast before as well. My background, and Armando, who owns our business, both of our background is in performance, acting, producing films, producing live events, and I always say that the biggest skill as an actor that you have is listening to your scene partner and reacting to what they give you. That's acting in 100. I mean, that's what it is. It's listening and responding. And I think that plays hand in hand with sales. Not that you're acting or putting on a part when you're selling, but there's that, you have to have that authenticity. But yeah, you have to listen. And if you're really listening, then you can really hear what the problems are and solve them. So I love that. I love the whole idea, of what you're putting together. I think it's amazing. We're talking about business development. There's a lot of lawyers that think they don't have time for business development. So how are you helping them make business development and branding and all that good stuff a part of their everyday routine?
Well, let's take a step back and then a step forward. I mentioned a few minutes ago that business development is a learned skill.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn a skill and you're executing on it, is it safe to assume that you're going to save more time than waste time? Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, I've been selling since I'm 16 years old. I sold shoes at Kinney's, which is the Great American Shoe Store for anyone over 45 that would know.
Yeah.
And, from then on, I was always, in selling and sales. And, the idea that, we have to sell something is challenging. So why, let's either figure it out on our own and wing it, or let's have a system to follow. Well, again, we have a system for how we shower and dry ourselves. We have a system for how we make eggs in the morning, right? We don't do it with the shell first, right? I mean, we don't, we know how to make eggs, yet we're not going to take the time and put attention into something that gives us direct control and freedom in our careers, whether you're an entrepreneur, a lawyer, or an entrepreneur, lawyer, whatever it might be. Like, having systems I don't think I've heard anyone build a law practice that didn't boast and brag about the systems they had, the internal systems they had.
Yeah.
Nobody does it. Nobody's winging it and getting ahead like people who do. I had John Morgan on my show, number 500 on my Be That Lawyer podcast.
Awesome.
He went on. Yeah. Oh yeah. He went off about systems for most of the show. I mean, that is how you scale. That is how you build. And so having a system, I think, is really important. And then the other part of it is, this is kind of part of my 3 Ps, is you have to have a plan where we talk through who your targets are, where you're spending your time, what's the low hanging fruit. Why are you wasting your time doing random acts of marketing and going here and doing that and posting here and doing that? Like, it doesn't make sense. Let's focus on where the business is. Let's create a tracking system so we know that you're going down the right path. And if not, how do we adjust? Right. And then having a system like sales-free selling. And then how do we improve performance over time? So it's planning, it's process, and it's performance improvement. If you do that in any sport, if you do that in cooking, if you do that in dance, whatever it might be.
Acting. Yeah. Yeah.
Acting. Oh yeah. So I'm the same actor in high school that I am on the professional stage or screen. I don't think so.
No.
Right. Everyone needs to get better and better and better in order to evolve. And yet in business development, it isn't given the same type of attention. I think it's a big misstep. So that's how we save time. And, then you can start getting into things like delegating and automating. And, there's a great book on time management called Getting Things Done. And just to share, Will, like, I am naturally built as an actor like that. Like, you and I could be from the same family. Like, I am not structured and organized and someone who is, in that vein. I had to learn all of those skills.
100%.
And there isn't anyone that knows me that doesn't think that I'm the most organized person they've ever met. And that is not natural. I had to build off of all of my deficits and ADHD and whatever to create those paths. So lawyers that are busy and have, billable hours and they've got families and they've got all this stuff and they think about business development, like, screw that. Like, that's on top of everything. Well, we need to start working backwards and figuring out, maybe there are some gaps in your day. Maybe you're not delegating everything you should. Maybe you need to do a better job of maybe you need an accountability buddy. Maybe you need, just a more sophisticated plan that allows you to, think about how you're spending your time. Doom scrolling on LinkedIn, whatever it might be, we can find those gaps. Yeah. And in delegation is the key too. Like, I do, this marketing, I do, meet with new potential clients and work with my clients. And then 40 plus hours a week of my stuff goes to my assistant who does all that. And if he wasn't doing it, it would fall on me and I'd have to add 40 hours a week to my already busy week of 40 hours or whatever. So those are just a few. I just kind of threw up all over you with that.
No,
that's a lot of what's going on.
I hear that from so many people that the higher ups, whether it's in a law firm or any kind of business, is a big part of scaling is letting go and of things and delegating out to the right people so that you're spending your time on the business development side of things that you should be spending your time on. I hear that I hear that across the board. And I guess it's just really hard. I know it's really hard for business owners to let those things go and to move forward in that area. So, 100%. And making it a habit, like you said, with anything, if you do it repeated enough times and you're following that process, it becomes a habit and you don't even think about it anymore. I'm not thinking about it.
It's got to be, you got to build things into your schedule. You got to look at your time, look at how you track your day. How did you spend your day? What were the things that absorbed most of your day that's under your pay grade? Who's stealing your time away? Which clients are difficult and calling you day and night and never ending, and they're not paying you what you value? These are all things that we need to start to realize are taking away from our ability to be happy and develop business and live a great lawyer's life or a great entrepreneur's life. And so that's why we sometimes have to really take stock of what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis.
Love it. Love it. Do you have a story you could share with me of a client or a firm that kind of transformed their practice after working with you
Yeah,
and
I
some of the
appreciate
things that
that.
they did differently?
I'm going to give you two quick ones. All right.
Okay.
Because there's two types of people that I work with generally. There are people who are doing really well and need to get to greatness. Right. So, like Michael Jordan, pre college, college needed to get greatness, needed to meet Phil Jackson to unleash and get 6 championships. So I've got, and one of these is an attorney at Jackson Lewis that I'm going to be hanging out with later this week is Neil. And Neil, he was on track to make partner as a senior associate, his goal, and he had already been doing business development, but he was doing it out of sheer force and effort and will and throwing hundreds of hours a year at it. And when we worked together and he started getting a plan and process and tracking and everything put into place, systems for how he did everything, moving things forward, moving things out, it elevated his game to equity. And then he's just continued to go million to 2 million. It just keeps going up and up and up. Every year is his best year. Okay. So that's one way that this type of program that I'm running will help somebody who's already successful. I work with equity partners that are already doing multi-million dollars. They're wondering, why am I not double or triple this?
Right.
So I'm able to evaluate every attorney individually to figure out where their gaps are, where their deficits are, and what the potential growth can be. And by the way, if they have no gaps and no potential, they're doing everything they should. I will just say, you're doing great, man. Keep at it. You don't need me. Right. And but that's not the typical me. Mostly
Sure.
it's like they're doing well despite themselves, right? They're just really good at the law. They got lucky a few times, whatever it might be. The second one is super interesting. It's an attorney out of Saudi Arabia named Saad, and he was doing the lawyer thing. He was, had clients that loved him, and he was doing his business and just kind of humming along as a solo, but he didn't have any, again, systems process, any of it. So by inserting that in, he was able to not only build his law practice and bring in some really big clients, but he already now has an associate. He has a assistant helping him. He's now building and getting ready to scale from nothing, from barely making ends meet to being highly profitable and now looking to hire and grow. So I think that there's stories for everybody, but again, it doesn't happen without a commitment to changing something that isn't working into something that you believe will work. And then obviously I have to validate that this all works. Right. So, which I do a good job at, because I have every prospective client that I meet with, not only attend my class to kind of validate it, but also talk with one or two of my clients to hear from their mouths, like, what did this do for me? And to see it in themselves, that they say, hey, if I do that too, this is where I could be in, a year or 2, 3, 4.
So I want to ask a question. You mentioned personal branding earlier. That's a lot of what we do in our business is personal branding.
Yeah.
And I find that is not something that a lot of attorneys are not thinking about their personal brand. They're thinking about the firm.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious what kind of feedback you get from attorneys when you tell them, hey, you need to work on your personal brand, and kind of how you crack that shell. This is something you can help me with, because we find it kind of difficult to get these guys to understand, yeah, your firm is important, but you are your firm, and you've got to sell yourself as much as you're selling your law firm. Talk to me a little bit about how you're kind of getting through to attorneys on that level.
I think people have to sort of observe you in your natural habitat, right? So you're not just posting about the super lawyer that you just got, right?
Yeah.
You're posting about, that you went dancing with your spouse, and how dancing relates to, the practice of law or whatever it might be. Like, you start to share personal things. Like, I fish with my son since he could hold a stick. I've been fishing with my son, and we learned from our father-in-law up in Wisconsin. But I talk about fishing, and I talk about the relationship with my son around it, but also, how does that relate to how we need to fish for business, and how we need to try new things, and we have to try different spots, and whatever it might be that relates to business development. So people that know me through my articles, my books, my podcasts, they get nothing but the authentic me every time. I'm never anyone else. I'm never trying to be anyone else. Right. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it, I think, is that will to some degree help you come up with understanding and identifying what your differentiator is, what makes you unique in the market. So I'm talking with one of my clients, Greg, and after, a week of working with him, he mentions that he worked he's an IP attorney, right? Intellectual property, that he worked at the at the trademark office, right? As an inspector or whatever, whatever they do. And I said, does anybody know that? He goes, well, no, it's just something that I did in my past. Right. I go, well, what is that? Like, you work for the other side. You work to get patents through. And here you are helping other people do it. You know that system. He goes, oh yeah, I know it. And I go, so why are we not leaning into that and leveraging it? It's who you are. It's what you did.
Yeah.
Right. You're a patent investigator, so let's do it. And so, it could be that. I've got another client that just signed up with me. He's got a deep background in law enforcement and working as an EMT. And like, we're not leveraging the fact that you have all these lives, that you've saved all these lives, and that you've put so much effort into helping others through. So, I think a lot of it just comes down to being who you are, bringing out the best in you, but also sharing things about you that people can start to identify as, hey, I see a lot of you and me, right? Like the actor thing. Like, I see a lot of you and me. You and I can get along well, and we'd work well together if we did business together. Like, that's the idea, is like, you want to work with people like you.
I 100% agree. That's what we tell. We do personal branding, social media content, video production, podcast production for attorneys specifically, not just attorneys, but that's a big part of our audience, our customer base. And we're constantly telling them, we want to learn more about them so we can develop more content about them as a person. And then we always try to do is to find what I call it the connective tissue. Is we want to find the connective tissue between that and the business that they run, whether they're a lawyer or whether they own a restaurant or whether they're doing HVAC or whatever it might be. We want to find that connective tissue to kind of let people in. So that's great. That's very validating to hear, because that's we're doing a lot of the same things, on our end, and it is a struggle to get attorneys to understand that you got to let people in and let them see a little bit of who you are as a person.
Yeah, they think like that's gonna make them less, right? Like
they're afraid to turn people off. They don't want to alienate anyone. And I don't know. I feel like if you're authentic,
don't again, if you're like naturally a jackass, well then obviously, don't be authentic, just go away. But, for those of us who people will like when they get to know us, and they'll appreciate us even more and want to do business with us.
100%.
If that's coming out in your social media, if that's coming out in your writing, your speaking, your whatever it is that you're doing, the relationships that you develop, things are going to go very well for you.
I agree. And it's just, I don't know why it's so hard to get. I think a lot of it is that just the fear of alienating anyone that could potentially be a client, or being judged for being themselves. And you just have to you got to put yourself out there a little bit, and it's going to pay off if you're authentic and honest about it. Steve, tell me a little bit about the podcast and how that's working for you. Be That Lawyer, and the framework of it, and where people can find it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm bringing on top experts in legal and also top rainmakers, and, interviewing them with the goal of getting out as many, tactical, actionable tips that I can, secrets of how they became successful, or what they're recommending that, lawyers in big firm and solo do to, to have their best lawyer life. So I'm bringing on, people that are in, mental health and time management, to marketing and branding, to, business, my competitors who I'm friends with. I'm friends with almost all of my competitors, where we have each other on our shows. We refer to each other like it's, it's co-opetition, as my friend Steve calls it.
That's a good word. I like that.
It is.
Yeah.
And that mindset of abundance is another thing that people throw out there that we try to do.
100%.
I think being greedy, again, it makes seem like the right thing to do. And maybe there's some people you don't want to bring into your world, but I find that if you allow people to come in, you find what makes you unique and what makes you different, and you can really use it and utilize it to help your clients when they're not a good fit. Like, I have this class I teach in conjunction with coaching. For some people, that's just too much. Like, that's just too much time, or too much. Like, they don't want all that in a program. They just want coaching. Okay, well then I'm not a fit. Let me tell you who to talk to. Right. So like, it's great to do that. So the Be That Lawyer podcast is all about that. And then I also have a new podcast that is called Future Rainmakers. So that's going to be more of like me just talking, answering questions and being interviewed on best practices for time management, marketing, branding, personal development, things like that. I occasionally bring on a client to sort of sit next to me and explain like what we're doing together and why it's useful. So those are the two things. And then the books and social media. I'm kind of, I have a pinwheel a graphic I used on social the other day. It has like 5 or 6 different flags that spin around of the things that I'm doing, not only for my own business, but to demonstrate to my clients and to everybody, this is how business development and marketing branding need to be done. You need to have multiple flags kind of swinging around at all times to keep the flow of business and branding going. So I try to practice what I preach a little bit.
You're preaching to the preacher, because we tell our clients the same thing. We tell everybody we talk to the same thing, that that it's a multi-pronged approach. There's no one secret answer for all this stuff. You have to kind of do a little bit of everything, and then do a lot of the thing that's working the best for you, for sure. So Steve, I absolutely love the mindset that you have in place and what you're doing to help out attorneys. It's very much in line with our philosophies and how we work with firms and lawyers. I think we work in some similar areas and some things you're doing that we don't necessarily focus on, but that's okay. Like you said, there's so much work to go around, and there's so much different things that people need help with. I absolutely love what you have going on and the philosophy that you put in place. Tell our audience out there how they can find you. Like I told you before we came on, we have a lot of attorneys who check out the show. Let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can find you and get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Will. So bethatlawyer.com is the way to go. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Steve Fretzin. If you just Google my name, you'll see 40, 50, 60, 70 pages of content. I've been creating content for over 20 years. And you might even see me with a baby face and no beard, which is a little freaky, quite frankly. But yeah, if anybody's interested in having a direct conversation with me, there's a link on my website to get a meeting with me. Otherwise, I just recommend, as I said earlier, be a student of the game and email me and say, hey, Steve, do you have some eBooks for me? You can find them on Amazon if you like the hardback or softback. But I'm happy to share, anything I can to help somebody get better at LinkedIn, business development, whatever it might be. But you'll see all those resources on my website.
Awesome, man. Love it. Love what you got going. I love the Jordan jersey behind you, by the way.
Yeah, my prized possession.
Is it signed?
Yeah, it's signed. It's autographed on it too.
Is it game worn?
I don't think it's game worn. No.
Jordan.
He had a bunch that he signed and that I got back in 94. And I made a great arrangement with my father. I said, why don't we split the investment of this jersey and then I'll hang on to it. So he was like, oh, that sounds great. I was like, all right, there we go.
Win-win for sure.
I just negotiated with a lawyer and won. So there you go.
That's the genesis of the whole thing. Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, he's still my GOAT. People can say LeBron all day long. LeBron's great, but Jordan's the GOAT. So
much fun.
Indeed. So, Steve, awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. I want to talk to you a little bit off the air. If you can hang out with me for a couple minutes once we're done here. I want to talk a little bit more about your pod and maybe some people that we can put each other in front of, like we were talking about. Let's find a way to help each other out. And everybody needs to be doing that in their business as well. Those of you who are watching the live stream out there, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the live stream. If you're watching the recorded version on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple, we appreciate you guys tuning in as well. We really appreciate engagement, whether you're liking the pod, liking the show, giving us thumbs and stars and all that good stuff, or subscribing. We appreciate that as well. And share the show with people. Let people know what we have going on. Let people know what Steve and other guests that we have come on are doing as well. That's how we get the word out to more people. So that's our episode for the day. I will be back tomorrow or later this week with some more episodes of P4P. And hopefully our guests will bring as much great knowledge and nuggets to the table as Steve's done this morning. Because my brain's firing now. So I appreciate it again, Steve. And those of you watching, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Until then, have a great Monday and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.